1.7 trillion green energy spending spree could send solar stocks soaring. Yeah, I'm pretty sure if anybody heard that Biden was trying to put $1.7 trillion into the market, they jump on the bandwagon like everyone else here is doing. And I just have to say, it's really scary how high the stocks on these energy areas are going here. It's like 317.8 return. A 3-month return was like 97%. Like, these are extremely high returns. The thing is, though, it's like these aren't going to last forever. And some of you might be thinking, oh, I got to jump on the bandwagon now. But the thing is, though, when do you jump off the bandwagon? If you actually want that actual increase, you know? And the thing is, though, when people start pulling out, this market is going to come crashing down so hard. Like, it's going up extremely hard, but the problem is we're not seeing it leveling out, which means we don't know how far the green energy section can fall right now. All we're seeing is extremely high returns, except for the... See, this would make me feel a little more comfortable. And it's like 24.8, 80.1. It's like, yeah, that's not the highest return, but at least you can say, like, if it falls, it should fall within, like, it won't fall too hard. But these guys, oh boy, some of these guys might fall hard. That's my opinion on that. So, how Biden's $1.7 trillion climate plan would change America after Trump's big oil presidency. How would it look? See, Biden aims to push as much as $1.7 trillion over 10 years into a plan to boost renewable power and boost speed introduction of electric vehicles through tax credits, boosted research and development into technologies, including large-scale battery power storage and carbon capture and minimization, and modernizing infrastructure, including the nation's electricity grid and a nationwide network of public charging stations for electric vehicles, or EVs. Excuse me. If it passes, ordinary consumers will get subsidies for switching to electric cars, a cash for clunkers-like incentive to trade in gas guzzlers, and more of their home electricity will come from wind or solar sources. Here's my concerns. It's like, aren't electric vehicles really expensive? Like, can the average Joe actually afford an electric vehicle, even a second-hand electric vehicle? There's also the fact of the efficiency of electric vehicles. Can you use electric vehicles to travel large distances, or is it kind of a in-city only type vehicle? I haven't looked too much into this, but these are just kind of the questions that come up to my head. The next part is, if public charging stations are to replace all of the gas stations we see now, when will we see pay for charging stations? Because you know what's going to happen. Somebody has to pay for all this electricity. And you could say, well, it comes from the wind or the solar panel, so shouldn't it be free? It's like, it costs money to make these things. This ain't cheap. Let's see. Trump literally has proposed no formal climate plan. Instead, his campaign website touts an energy plan that focuses on expanding drilling for oil and gas on federal lands and offshores, including the Alaska National Wildlife Refuge. Yeah. And you can kind of see Trump's point on drilling for oil and gas, and just because oil and gas, you know there's a market for that. You know it's still very strong right now. And it's also the fact that the U.S. is in a huge deficit. September 2019, the U.S. was at a negative of $1 trillion. Now they're sitting at over $3 trillion. Now you can blame COVID and everything, but you can see this is a pretty scary looking graph if it keeps going down. Which kind of brings up the question, how's Biden going to find $1.7 trillion to put in there? you can only go into so much debt before somebody says, no more, you got to pay us back. Let's see here. The difference between the candidates' positions will resound through America's lives and household budgets for years to come. They could help determine everything from the kind of electricity they consume, although a Biden-aided drive towards renewable power is not expected to make a major difference in electricity prices to the kinds of cars or trucks they drive. I don't know, because again, there's not a lot of vehicles out there running on electricity. I don't know how much research has been done to kind of see when the shift will occur. Let's see. Biden's proposals, if enacted, should change consumer behavior without adding to consumers' direct costs for electricity and cars, according to Matt Breedert. I think I'm pronouncing that wrong. A London-based portfolio manager for the investment firm Ecofin. Nobody's going to pay for it. What does that mean? Let's see. Because the cost of producing green electricity and electrical vehicles is falling, you're not going to have to pay for it. This is due to supply and demand. There's a large supply of electricity thanks to the oil and gas section. There's a low demand for electric vehicles for reasons unknown that I haven't looked up. But you will see a shift. Once the oil and gas is gone and it's green electricity, you will see a shift. The fact that he says you're not going to pay for it, I don't buy that. The Biden plan could also create an estimated 10 million jobs, the Democrats' campaign claims, as construction workers retrofit homes and offices for energy efficiency, and American automotive and parts manufacturing retools for a new generation of technology. The president has focused on jobs in the oil and gas and coal industry, which together account for about 220,000 jobs, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. While claiming credit for job growth in renewable energy industries, he has derided. See, the things Biden is talking about are very market-centered, said Chris Lafakis. Probably butchering more names here. I'm sorry. An energy economist at Moody's Analytics. The Biden approach works through incentives, and that's likely to mitigate its costs, but won't make the transition happen as quickly. Yeah, that's the other thing, is that this is going to be a slow transition, which you're still going to need the oil and gas, like it or not, because you need that kind of cushion. Because again, huge deficit, and you got to find that 1.7 trillion somewhere. In a debate Tuesday night, President Trump argued that he had rolled back climate policies of Obama that were driving the price of energy through the sky. I think that was true. I don't know. I haven't looked into what Obama's rules were, but I remember hearing a lot of people saying that. And appeared to argue that tighter fuel economy standards to promote electric vehicles in Biden's plan, which are based on Obama's era regulation Trump rolled back, would boost the price of cars by $3,500. The inflation, because the price of gasoline, electricity, and new cars all declined in the 8 years after Obama's election, according to the government data. That I'll have to take a look at. See, Biden countered that his plan would create millions of high-paying jobs. As Trump talked over Biden's answer in a debate dominated by the president's behavior, he falsely claimed Biden actually wants to spend $100 trillion, and Democrats want to take out the cows too. Okay, that's where that meme's fooling around now. According to a transcript of the debate, cows breathing and passing gas emit methane, a greenhouse gas. I mean, life in general does that. Again, I don't know who's pulling these numbers here. I kind of think both candidates are exaggerating their numbers. One being what Biden believes he can create, like 10 million jobs from the energy sector here. It's like, just because you're putting money into the green energy sector doesn't mean people will immediately move. Because what will make people move is solar panels need to be really cheap, which at this point I don't think they are. They have to be very efficient to kick out the oil and gas industry, which so far they are not. There's also a difference in living conditions depending on the sunlight and all that. So yeah, you can have all the workers you want, but there's still human behavior and actual real life expectancies where you live and all that. So yeah, I think I've kind of butchered this part enough from CNBC here, but you get the idea. The $100 trillion, probably a little over exaggerated, but the end of the point is it's still going to cost a buttload. And yeah, like I said, the number of jobs, I just don't see it. The other thing I just kind of want to point out, as I did in a previous video, is 2018. What did the energy mix look like? And US at about, it looks like 13, maybe 14% was on renewable or low carbon emitting fuel sources, and the rest was on like gold, natural gas, and petroleum. So yeah, like I mentioned in my other video, this cannot be a snap your fingers process. You snap your fingers and cut the petroleum, natural gas, and coal industry, but you can't snap your fingers and voila, solar and the renewable energy sources just cover up the massive amount of energy the US uses. That's just, it will never happen. Whether it takes 10 years and we can see the decrease, not sure. Because like if you look at the 18-year trend, and I don't know, mind you, that was just on hydroelectricity and wood. With the introduction of wind, solar, and it looks like a lot more biofuel. I don't know what waste to energy is. Yeah, that has come into a bigger gap, but again, it's like if this is the current trend, I know it's not, but I'm just saying, if this is kind of the current trend of the renewable energy sources, it's going to take a couple hundred years before it can kick out some of this stuff. Not the 10 years Biden's hoping for. Let's see, up next is, like, I just want to give you guys kind of a current outlook of what solar panels can do for you and why don't put all your eggs in one basket, and just reiterating the whole, this is going to take a lot more time than I think people are expecting at this point. Let's see, solar panel power output, see about 265 watts. Over here they show the companies that produce probably some of the better solar panels out there right now. So you have Canadian Solar, LG, Panasonic, Sharp, Solar World, Yingli Solar. These are power outputs, and where was it? To calculate how much electricity a solar panel will produce in a day, you simply have to multiply its wattage by the number of sunlight hours. The problem is I don't know whether or not this means a single panel, like this small section here, or includes the entire panel. The entire panel that's half your size and probably about half your weight of that size. So yeah. But it gives you kind of an idea of what it can produce, but you also need to figure out where do you live, how much energy are you actually using. And the next panel here, they said that in New York City, the average home uses about 7,248 kilowatts of electricity annually. Now I want you guys to see this number very clearly. Annually, 7,248 kilowatts per hour. The best solar panels that they have, or rather, solar panel size, is 3,400 kilowatts per hour annual electricity output. You would need 2 of the number 4 kilowatts. in terms of output, it's not quite there. And when it gets to the winter times, it's even worse because less sunlight. There's also the matter of, I haven't really looked too deep into it, but I don't know if solar panels hold electricity. I know that there's a lot of chemicals in it that kind of makes it like a battery, but I don't know if it actually holds the electrical charge, and I don't know if it can actually, I don't know if it can hold their electrical charge. I don't know how much they can hold. And does this deteriorate their overall lifespan if they're holding that electricity, or is it kind of like it's only deteriorating its lifespan if it's constantly inputting and outputting kind of thing? So those are just kind of things I haven't looked into, but just kind of more things to think about. Let's see, what determines solar panel efficiency? And this is because like we'll see numbers like SunPower is 22.8% efficient, LG 22. All that. There's all factors that determine how efficient a solar panel is. At its core, solar panel efficiency is determined by how much incoming sunlight the solar panel can convert into usable electricity. So there's a lot of room for improvement there. And again, I don't know how this feeds into the conversion rate of the watts here. It's like we're seeing, is there anyone I can compare that to? SunPower, are you in here? No, you're not, unless you're squashed into somebody else here. Let's go LG, 22%. So LG being 22%. Okay. So that would mean, if it's 22% here, let me grab the calculator. So let's go with the lowest number at 290. And divide that by 0.22. So yeah. You're missing out on, so of a 1300 energy from the sun, you're going to gain 22% of that. So there's a lot we're missing out on here. I think most of this might be heat, but who knows. Next part I want to go on to is looking at the life cycle emissions that have been done. This is on the UCSUSA.org. And they're saying that things to think about, even though the solar energy produces no carbon emissions, there's other factors you need to look at, such as the manufacturing, material transportation, installation, the maintenance costs, and the decommissioning and dismantling. Because, as I said, solar panels are kind of built like a battery, or have some of the same chemicals as the battery, and you really don't want those seeping into groundwater, which was a concern in a 2018 article that I read, saying that the rainwater was actually washing away some of the chemicals that were on the solar panel, some of the cadmium, and was getting into the runoff surface water and groundwater, making the environment really bad for the drinking water. Let's see, yeah, not too bad there. Let's see, was there anything I wanted to show off that I haven't said in the Australia report? Not too much, aside from just giving you guys a better example of what the army of solar panels would look like. It is just, some of these things just get very massive, very sci-fi looking. Oh, jeez, these satellites. But yeah, this is back in 2014 for the Australia report. And there's a lot of health concerns from back then. Mainly the production of the solar panels, because like I said before, they're using toxic materials and gases during the productions. So that it's kind of that whole human life value trade-off here. You know, is it kind of worth it? How much do you value this? Is this something that will increase the costs a lot more than we currently think it will? Let's see what else. Gas emissions. Yeah, depend. So the emissions during production depend on the technology that is used. And I think that's about all I had to say about this part. Yeah, there's a lot of more science stuff that I just can't really decipher into easy bits for people to understand right now. And then there's this whole land thing about, let's just talk about this. Landfilling old solar panels likely safe for humans, new research suggests. Which is, again, concerning, considering, I can't stop reiterating this, same chemicals as a battery. Let's see, International Energy Agency Photovoltaic Power Systems Program will release research later this year showing that solar panels can be landfilled safely amid growing concern over the disposal of renewable energy components. My question is, how old are these solar panels? Because my first thought is, if they're like the fridges of old, like when they were originally made, these guys are not environmentally friendly at all. Because they say that solar panels are supposed to last like 30 years, but it kind of looked like the US wasn't using them until around the start of 2000. So it hasn't even been 30 years. It's been about 20 years. And from this picture alone, you can't really tell if any of these have been disposed of earlier. So some of them might have been like back in 2015, or these all can't be just 2020. And if they are, it's like the life expectancy of the solar panel has decreased from back then. But those are things that we won't know. Let's see here. Yeah, they talk about recycling options, but if I remember correctly, okay. First Solar uniquely has a long-standing recycling scheme. That doesn't bode well. That recovers up to 90% of the cadmium telluride thin film modules. For the most part, though, the most common crystalline silicon modules have been handled by mainstream glass, metal, or electronic waste recycling facilities. Okay, that's fine. I just don't like how they call it recycling scheme. Shouldn't it be a recycling plan, an option? Makes you kind of wonder, are someone trying to hide something here? Let's see. As it stands, sending old panels to landfills is one of several options for disposal. Panels that are substandard are still operational, can potentially be sold on secondary markets. And that's not recycling, that's reusing. Those that are broken or so old that as to no longer be functional can potentially be recycled, but in the US at least, the recycling option is limited. Okay. The challenge with that is not their main product line, and to date, there's not been a lot of PV modules to recycle. So they end up having to store them for a while until they can run them in a batch. It's all at once, okay? See, that works, but it's not a fully integrated or high-value recycling process that can extract all the trace material. See, Recycle PV Solar launched its recycling service in 2018, at which point an estimated 90% of decommissioned US solar panels was going to landfills. I don't know whether this means they took the 90% of the solar panels that were going to the landfills, or they themselves said, we can't do anything with 90% of the solar panels we received. We gotta toss them in the landfill. And I would show you, but that page has been taken down, or the report has been taken down. So I really have no idea about that. So as far as I know, the recycling of the solar panels still has not been solved yet. Alright, that's about all I got for this. If you have any questions, concerns, feel free to write in the comments. All these guys gives you a better idea on, like, I don't mind the idea of going towards green energy. It's just, I don't see this happening. Like, I don't see this happening the way Biden or the Democrats think it will. I just really, really don't. They're putting all their eggs in one basket here, and that's incredibly scary.